Hello and welcome to Front Row Racing. It's time for the FRR-idays at Mexico, the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. And hopefully we're going to be in for a fantastic session here. For the last three FRR-idays Cups that we'll be doing for this season, which will be Mexico here, Brazil and then Abu Dhabi, we're going to be keeping our current league drivers out of the sessions for the simple reason of that with the FRR-idays it is for the newer drivers and we're now into crunch time for them. The guys are essentially now racing for the possibility of taking permanent seats in our next season on F1 2015. So we're going to focus then completely on the FRR-idays drivers. Now for any of the viewers watching, you may see the odd name where you go, well hang on a minute, he raced on Wednesday or he raced on Thursday. Well, if there were a reserve driver in our league races, they are still idays driver who is on the likes of Temp Fear. He's still entitled to an invite into this session. I tell you what, it's looking a little bit gloomy here in Mexico. Now in the commentary box we've got myself from Racing DP, otherwise known as Dave Lays in Beds, and we have Front Row Racing. Alright, how are you this evening, Ray?
I'm fine, and you see that? Overcast.
Overcast. It says heavy cloud followed by possible showers. Now I did jokingly say to the guys that it'll be wet. But I was joking. But obviously, in the FRR-idays, they do have to run on dynamic weather. Now, assists are allowed to be used in these sessions because essentially it is a feeder system into our main leagues. We've got Front Row Racing World Championship, which is our... Oh, it's raining, Ray. It's raining. There's water streaming off the cars. So anyone that gets out now on the option tyres has got a chance. Yeah, the Front Row Racing World Championship is our no assist league. That's run on Wednesdays, 7:30 p.m. And on Thursdays, we have our World Series, which is our assists allowed league, which is also at 7:30 p.m. on our YouTube channel. Now, for the FRR-idays guys, they're allowed to use assists or they can run with no assist if they like, but obviously if they are a no assist user they have the possibility of going into either the World Championship or the World Series. But if they are an assist user, then World Series is really the only league that we run that they are going to be able to get into. From our racing, we do obviously also run Project Cars leagues, PCF, which is Project Cars Fridays, and PCS, Project Cars Sundays. The PCF will be on at about 9 o'clock tonight in the Formula Bs for round 8, I think it is, at Silverstone. So keep an eye out for that one coming live at about 9 o'clock. In the meantime, though, we'll keep Formula No Wheels, yeah. In the meantime, though, we'll keep an eye on this track right here on F1 2015 as we follow Bart Dude around the Mansell curve, about to start his first lap. Now, in the FRR-idays, we don't impose any additional stewarding decisions or rules or anything like that, so our ETL penalty systems that we impose on our league racers do not apply here. But what we tend to do instead is if we see a guy off track, we'll mention it, then that driver will know that if it was a league race he'd have to, just like there, turn 2 for Bart, do a bit too much curb, and now he would have to do an ETL lift before the bridge. ETL lifts, if you're not sure what they are, check out on our YouTube channel the Front Row Racing Stewards Guides for the circuits, especially this one, because I think what the stewards have done here is very, very good given the nature of the corners. Okay, so a first sector then of 22.2 for Bart Dude, which isn't too bad, but then we'll have our league drivers saying, yeah, but he did cut a corner. And then into the S, there's a very tricky section of the circuit, and with the rain falling now, it's going to get even trickier. Again, a bit too much curb, but way too much curb used there as he heads in towards the baseball stadium. A very tricky section of the circuit. Going to get it slowed down for the hairpin as he does so. 28.9 sector 2, not too bad, a little wide on entry though. Around the final corner and heading to the start finish line, I'm going to predict a mid 17 to high 17 here. 17.7 for Bart Dude, so a little work needed perhaps on his racing lines, and a lot of work perhaps needed for English Boy, although I think he may have backed out on that one. Currently sat in third place sector time of 24.2 sector 1, so yeah, that's definitely not going to improve his lap, and that's one of the things that the stewards will do in our league races when it comes to qualifying. If a driver happens to cut a corner or does an ETL in qualifying, if it's not on their fastest lap, then the stewards aren't really that bothered. If it's on their fastest lap, then they need to have done an ETL lift to avoid any kind of penalty. And the going rate of penalty for an ETL with no lift in qualifying at the moment for this season has been a qualifying ban at the next event. Okay, so as English Boy then heads down into the baseball stadium, you can see the clouds are definitely coming over a little greyer and the rain coming down a little bit heavier. English Boy still needs to work a little bit on his apexes, that one definitely, but he is now heading into the pits. Okay, let's see who else we've got. John 94 Rhinos, gone through sector 1 with a 24.0, going a little bit deep though into turn 4. He's got a Mercedes ahead of him. So anything that you got your eye on there, Ray? Anything you've spotted? You seen Yamar in the crowd yet?
No, nobody's went that far yet, but they're getting there. English Boy had a couple of wee ETL corner cuts on his lap he done, but other than that I've not really replying on chat to one of the viewers.
Okay, John 94 Rhinos, he struggled a little bit through the S's. I think he's got to that point now where the track is getting very, very slippy, the car's not going where he wants it to go, and he's struggling a little bit. I won't be surprised if we see him go for the pits. No, he's going to continue on to try and at least get this lap in, but it's only a 122.9. So we'll stay on board with him. I know he's not been able to get a lot of practice in over the last couple of weeks, struggled a little bit, but that's what these sessions are all about. Some tracks you'll struggle at, some tracks you won't. So we'll have to see how the guys get on. I mean, one thing that I know that we are thinking about, or John's definitely struggling, is possibly having the FRR-idays a week in advance of the league races. That way when the league drivers need a reserve, they can always watch the FRR-idays race and see how people got on at that particular track, because someone may be really strong at a track and perhaps weak at another one, but that'll all come in our announcements after the end of the season. Now John is definitely struggling now, he's slower in sector 1. So Ardington, good old Ardington, we're not seeing him for quite some time. Was a league driver last season, was due to race this season, but unfortunately had to pull out for personal commitments. So whenever Ardington is online, he gets an invite because he is a good lad and he always did well by the league. So we'll see how he gets on. But I can guarantee you he's not done any practice around Mexico in preparation for this circuit. But 23.8 sector 1 into turns 4 and 5, nicely round those, and then the double apex of turns 6. Tricky corner this one. Do you apex them both? Do you apex the final part? Do you apex the first part and go wide on the final part? Only practice tells you which is quicker. Then into the S's, turns 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. Very tricky sector, but he's got his car in the right position here, but he can't quite attack turn 10 and 11 because the circuit's just not giving the grip. It is definitely wet, or mildly moist, as a certain hairy TV presenter would say. Into the hairpin of the stadium section. I do like this stadium section, as I said in World Series commentary. I don't like the corners through there. And then the Mansell curve, named as such for the fantastic overtake he did through there a few years ago. I say a few years ago, it was 1990. So Ardington with a 122.2 with a very nice lap there. Okay, let's see who else we've got. Millstar, not seen much of him, but he's got a 30.7 sector 1, so I'm guessing he's been to see if Ray's Mars serving beers in one of the beer tents. Either that, he's just trying to get himself warmed up to the level of grip here.
He's getting himself warmed up. I've been watching him hitting the brakes and then accelerating harsh and then wiggling his car about.
So he's trying to get a lot of tyre temperature into these tyres, I would guess, so that he can try and attack this next lap. Or no, he's just going into the pits. perhaps just testing what level of grip there is. Acorn 95 now. He's on the prime tyre, so he's going to be really slippy for him. Now, he is a reserve driver, and he had a reserve drive in the World Series yesterday. And in the FRR-idays over the last few weeks, he has been showing himself to be a pretty decent driver. He did fairly well in the World Series race yesterday. But what I do tend to try and do is get the race directors to send me race footage of, like, say, Acorn. So if Acorn's been on the race directors list and they want their race footage, if they send it in, I like to have a watch of it so I can see how the new guys really are getting on. I've not yet seen Acorns, but I will be interested to see how he did get on throughout his race. So sector 1, 23.9 on the prime tyres, which is not too bad, and into the double apex of 6. But these prime tyres are not going to give a lot of grip in these conditions, but they may work a little bit better in these. Go on.
I've got English boy on intermediates.
Also, English boy has decided that it is now time for the intermediate tyres. And I tell you what, for anyone that doesn't know, I will point it out now. A little bit of a tip for you all. Hopefully most of you will have worked this out before our season started. But if you actually go to your setup, we're on the option tyres here. If we go to the prime tyre, it says plus 1.6 seconds. If we go to the intermediate tyre, it says 2.8 seconds, but that time is coming down, which means the track is getting wetter. Not quite ready for intermediate tyres yet, but if you went out now on the intermediates, here we go, it's going down fast, look, it's really getting wet. And if we go to the wet tyres, that's coming down as well. So this is what you want to keep an eye on. If the delta time gets under sort of 3 seconds, go out on the intermediates, because by the time you start your flying lap, it's going to be ready for the intermediate tyres. Okay, let's go back to the action. Now, in previous FRR-idays, in tricky conditions like we've got here, we have seen some drivers really struggle and other drivers really shine. I mean, Hybrid Nuke was one that did stand out for me when we had FRR-idays at Hungary in very tricky conditions. He was one of the only drivers keeping it on the road all the way around the circuit and putting in good lap times. So we'll see how English boy gets on here through turns 1, 2, and I think that was 3A. Or 3B, yeah. But obviously it's not a very quick sector time given the weather conditions now, and also it could be getting to that point where DRS will be deactivated, but it's going to get tricky for the Fridays drivers from now. But I mean, the corner that English boy turn 3 had a bit of a problem at, that's one of those where that's quite a big ETL, so that lap in a way really needs a huge back off and sort of completely abandoned, because if that happened to be his fastest lap, an ETL lift's not going to cover that size of a cut. Anyway, heading down the oval straight, as it's called, because there is a bit of an oval here, or used to be, as the track used to go straight on at this point around the Peraltada, a corner that it is a shame is not there anymore. But I just wonder whether through this stadium section they could have had slightly faster corners, but I'm guessing they've put slow ones in there so that all the fans there get to have a really good look at the cars. Now, English boy has abandoned that lap on the intermediate tyres, so he either heard what we said, or his John 94 Rhinos on the option tyres is really struggling now. He's not going to be improving on his lap times, and he's on an out lap anyway. Who else we've got? Bart Dude, he's still on the option tyres and also struggling a little bit with the apexes of the corners. See how he gets on through 10 and 11. Oh, perhaps a little over the white line there. Millstar has ended his session, so into the stadium section for Bart Dude. Just about gets it around the corner, and then I think he may have seen a chicane between the hairpin and turn 12. The way that Cole's going, but you see the wide entry that he's taking there using the curb in a league race. That would be an ETL for wide on entry. For anyone that wants to know, the white line on the left of the circuit here and the white line on the right hand side of the circuit, they dictate the edge of the track. 2 wheels on the tarmac at all times, please guys. That's the way it goes. Curbs are not part of the racetrack, they are next to the racetrack. So through turns 1, over 2, through 3, and wiggling as he tries to get the power down. 22.9 sector 1, and I think that looks like a pause button pressed. Yep, so retirement for him now. Stringy B on the intermediate tyres, just coming to end an out lap. So we'll see how he gets on. Currently sat in second place. I doubt very much he's going to improve on his lap time overall. But given the current weather conditions and the possibility of rain in the race, it's handy to know how your car's going to handle. I mean, would you rate intermediates just to see what it's like?
No, I'm not that clever enough.
See, I would have done. If there's a possibility of rain, get out there on the option tyres, get a lap in, whatever lap time that may be. If it does rain and it is ready for the intermediates, bang them on and go and see what it's like. Because if it is wet for the race, you've got then a lap or two's experience of what the grip level is going to be like. Okay, sector 1 of a 23.7, which isn't too bad given the current conditions. Through turn 4, can he get it slowed down for 5? He can. And then the double apex of turn 6 could be very tricky here on the intermediate tyre. But he gets around it quite nicely. And then we're into the really difficult section. And given the inters and the wet weather, your whole rhythm through here is altered, as we can see. It struggles with 7 going wide. Now he's going to have to try and really get it over to the left. But he hasn't got the grip to get it into the apex, and that's meant he's ended up taking too much curb through 11. Now down to the stadium section. You want to be late on, well, not too late on the brakes here, but you want to be aggressive on the brakes there, and aggressive on the brakes into the hairpin and get it into the apex. Can't quite get it to the apex. And then around 15, although it's only a kink, and then into 16, the Mansell curve. It's not been a bad lap by him. Like I say, he's not going to improve on his lap time, but it is an extra lap of experience. Okay, who else have we got on track? Acorn 95, English boy's still going on his option tyres. Oh no, he's come back to track on option tyres. He was on inters, but he's decided to come back on a set of options. That is now 3A. The previous must have been 3B. Oh, and he's all out of shape. That's front wing gone. I think that was perhaps him trying to say, I'm not going faster. No, you're really not now, because you got no front wing. Okay, anyone else? Stringy B still going. Will Butler
Still going.
Let's see, whereabouts is Will Butler? He's on an out lap. His Acorn's still going, so if you keep an eye on Will Butler then, and we'll keep an eye on Acorn, who's on the intermediate tyres. 24.0 sector 1, 31.2 sector 2, not too bad. See how he copes with 15 and 16. Nicely done through 16. He could tell that it was going wide, and he knew he had to be off the power. It's a 24.5, and he's going to be able to continue on for another lap. He's got the time to do so, with just over a minute and 50 seconds to go. So
Phil Butler's become a drift driver.
Bart dude struggling with his no front wing.
Options.
I would have to agree with you there. It is too wet for the options. John Rhinos now retires from the session. Will Butler realises, yet too wet for the options. Acorn is about to retire. I think that is pretty much going to be session done, although Stringy B is going through turns 1, 2 and 3. Nicely done through there. Very nicely done through there. I think we'll see if we've got anyone else on track. No, we haven't, so we may as well stay on board with Stringy for the next minute 10 seconds. So you can get it really nice and tight to the apex, and then of 5. But another thing for the drivers to think of in conditions like this, the temptation is to just stay on the racing line. They may find there's more grip off the racing line when it comes to braking zones and also around some of the corners, but the S's here, I mean, we can see the cars sliding. Part of that is going to be the conditions, but another part will be being on the racing line. It makes it a little bit slippy, but through those corners you don't really want to be offline. Okay, into the stadium section. I mean, one way to sort of see for yourself the difference of driving on the racing line and off the racing line in these kind of conditions is if you approach a corner off the racing line, for example turn 1 here, you approach it off the racing line and brake, you may find it brakes better, but when you get to the apex of the corner, the car will suddenly slide because you're on the racing line. You go beyond the racing line and you get a bit of grip back. So Stringy B is going on for another lap. He's got the time to do so, and we're about to get kicked from the pit lane. So we're on to the track view now. Have we got anyone else on track, Ray?
I don't think so.
Acorn 95, but he's going slow, so that'll be over for him. So that's going to be pretty much session over. So anyone stand out in those conditions for you there, Ray?
Who was I watching? Well, English boy had a couple of corner cuts, but who else was I watching? Stringy B, he got down quite okay with the change of weather. Who else did I watch? Was it only Stringy B, Acorn? I never seen Temp Fear.
I'm not sure he went out on... Well, he must have gone out on track early on. I didn't really see him out on track in the wet condition. I mean, Ardington, wasn't surprised he had a very clean lap. As you say, Bart Doody was off track on quite a few occasions, and so were a few of the others. Some you could see were down to the weather conditions, but then for the FRR-idays drivers, they would have to understand that tyres being worn or the circuit being wet is not really an excuse for cutting a corner or running wide because it's wet. You've still got to do your ETO lifts and then go slower for the corner next time. You've got to race to the conditions that you're racing in. Now it is looking a little bit sunnier. It's not raining at the moment, but I reckon the rain is going to fall fairly soon. It's either going to get brighter or it's just going to get darker and darker and darker. So for someone...
Keep an eye in the clouds.
You got your head in the clouds, have you? I mean, for someone like Bart Dude, it looks like he's got a fairly decent amount of speed. He just really needs to focus on keeping his car on the road effectively. I mean, to get a reserve drive, the kind of things we're looking for is keeping the car on the tarmac, or if you are making mistakes and cutting corners, working on improving on that lap by lap. I mean, let's say for example during this race, if we just watched him and on the first lap he cut a corner by a mile, but throughout the race he was cutting it less, and ends up on the racetrack, you can see the improvement. Okay, so we're going to let the drivers get going down the start finish, and then we shall retire and see how they get on through turn 1, which hopefully won't be too bad. Stringy and Bart Dude heading side by side into turn 1, and Acorn up the inside. They're taking a lot of corner there to try and take evasive. Oh, we've got nudges going. Stringy's been nudged. Oh, and we've got a Red Bull and a Lotus facing the wrong way. I'm not sure who that was, but definitely two cars been spun around further down the field. That is now going to allow Bart Dude to run away out at the front. Oh, we've got a spin. Temp Fear. I didn't see exactly what happened. I was looking in the bottom left corner of my screen, but I did notice that we saw it on screen. So Temp Fear's had a bit of an incident with someone, and he started the race on the prime tyres. We've got white marked primes here and yellow marked options. So drivers will have to use both compounds of tyre unless it does rain, and here comes the rain. So anyone that started on the option tyre was a good call, because I don't think it'll be too long until they're going to be heading for the inters. And Millstar struggling a little bit. Oh, we've got a Williams going for a dive bomb by the looks of it into Acorn, yeah. Come on. Oh, I can't believe you actually got his name right. You've been calling him Annette all day. So yeah, a few people struggling with apexes of corners at the moment, and I saw Williams go for a little bit of a dive bomb into the hairpin. We'll see how they get on the next lap. Is he going to be attacked into turn 1? No, he's not. Oh, look at all those corner cuts going on. Come on, guys, you've got to improve on these if you want to get into the league races, because if you don't, you'll just end up getting so many penalties. You will get disqualified. Even if you do ETO lifts, that amount of corner cut, you're still going to get a penalty. Okay, Will Butler struggling a little bit all over the curb after turn 5. Let's see how Bart Dude is getting on out up front. I tell you what, Ray, you keep an eye on Bart Dude for a moment, because he's pulling away from the rest of the field. So you just keep an eye on him for a lap or two, and we'll see how Millstar is getting on in second place. He's being followed at the moment by Stringy B, and I think Stringy B could have the speed to catch up to him. It all depends on how the guys' cars cope in these tricky conditions. Stringy B nicely through the stadium section there, and then we've got English Boy and Will Butler battling it out here. Oh, Will Butler's run a little bit wide, sideways around the Mansell curve, and that's going to give the Ferrari of English Boy a decent chance of overtaking. I think we've lost to Williams, either that or he has spun it. He's into the pits. He's lost the front wing, so there has been a collision there, which means that he is now going to need a new front wing and possibly jump onto the intermediate tyre straight away. Now, English Boy looks like he was struggling a little bit with turn 3's apex there, so it's something he's going to need to work on through this race. Not easy when you're in the middle of a battle, but if you can work on it in the middle of a battle, it does show good skills. Now, there's a Mercedes just behind these guys. That's Temp Fear, who's got Ant 69 behind him. So I would expect Temp to, if he can, work his way through this field, but he is on the prime tyres at the moment. He has had the experience of racing around here in the World Championship a couple of days ago, so he's got the experience of this track, so he should work his way up fairly quick. Will Butler and English Boy into the stadium section. And one of the tricky things about following guys is we see English Boy there taking way too much curb and now Butler taking too much here. If you're following a car, and English Boy again, if you're following a car that's cutting corners and pulling that kind of a gap, it's going to get frustrating and tempt you into doing it as well. My advice is don't do what the car ahead does unless they're keeping it on the racetrack. Okay, couple of guys into the pits. Oh, Bart, dude, that was a shocking turn 2 there. Millstar.
Yeah, been disqualified by now.
That's an interesting comment you've made there. If he would have been disqualified by now, that means that he's done more than 9 ETLs in 4 laps. And that's why we don't impose penalties on here. Oh, Millstar, way too much curb there. So much curb, he was cutting the grass. But that's why in the FRR-idays, we'll say it. We won't impose a penalty, but we'll say it. He's done so many ETLs in the first 4 laps, he'd get disqualified. So for Bart, dude, he really has got to work on his corners, because it doesn't matter if you go and win the race by 30 seconds. If you've done it by cutting corners, your competitors are going to call you a certain name that nobody wants to be called. So yeah, I don't know what else to say on that one. Okay, Stringy B and Millstar 2nd and 3rd place. Will either of these head into the pits yet? I'm not sure if anyone has actually gone and bolted on the intermediate tyres. Oh, Millstar very, very wide around the Mansell curve, struggling for grip. Temp Fear is continuing on, and they've struggled to say that then. And 69, he also continuing on. John Rhinos on the option tyres, also continuing on. Is he? Yes, he is. I mean, something I haven't mentioned yet is pit lane. I mean, obviously, we want guys to keep the car on the tarmac, but also pit lanes should be entered correctly as well. That's within the white lines. For confirmation on those, that's where the Ferrari Racing Stewards guides come in very, very useful. Now, Acorn did pit earlier than anyone else, but he's gone to the prime tyre, so he's going to try and risk it to the end, I would guess, on that one. Okay, we're right on board with Bart, dude. He's going to run wide at turn 11. You don't want to be running out there too much. Well, yes, because if we've been discussing about potential ETLs, then people will want to see what the guy out in front is doing. Obviously, the difficulty is that if he now knows he's on the live stream, he might behave himself, but he has just cut that corner. Run wide on entry into 16, and then cut 16 and run wide on 16. So there's 3 ETLs all in 3 corners. So this is why, for someone like Bart, dude, he really, really, really needs to work on getting his apexes right. If that means you go slower, then you have to go slower. That then becomes your actual pace, not what pace you can do by extending the circuit or shortening the circuit, as he has just done there through turn 3. So given the situation for Bart, dude, even if he was doing ETL lifts now, with the amount that he has done, he's still going to get penalties, because there isn't really any example yet of improving those racing lines. So for Bart, dude, number one thing that he needs to work on from now until the start of the next F1 season we do is keeping the car within the limits of the circuit. Okay, who have we got in second place? Stringy B. Now, Stringy B had a reserve drive in the World Series a couple of weeks ago because he had been doing quite well. As I say that, he's gone off track. I think it's got really, really wet now. He had been doing very well in the FRR-idays, so he was given the opportunity. He was picked off the reserve driver list to take one of the drivers' place. Unfortunately, he did end up with quite a few ETLs that he didn't lift for and ended up getting disqualified from the event. May seem a bit harsh, but for someone like Stringy B now, he's had that experience of racing in the league, seeing how the stewards do their thing, and also having that experience of, oh bloody hell, I need to work on that. So for Stringy B, it's a steep learning curve, but it's one that other drivers have gone through, the likes of Hindle and others. Okay, so he now goes on to the intermediate tyre. Ant 69 still rotating around the circuit on a set of options. So Ray, what have you been watching while I've been waffling for the last few laps?
I was watching 10th Fear, and I'm watching Stringy B, Millstar now. Stringy B's just came out ahead of him in the pit lane, so... And he's went on, Stringy B's on intermediates. He is on the inters? Yeah. So it took me a while because I'm on Millstar and I'm trying to look at the dial. It's in side by side.
So it'll be interesting this to see who feels like they've got the better grip here, the driver on the intermediate tyres or the driver on the worn options. And I would guess it's going to be the intermediate tyres once they get up to temperature through the S's could really show where that grip is. But it could be difficult for Stringy if the car behind is taking a little bit too much curb somewhere. I'm not saying that he is, but if they do, then it could nullify any benefit of the intermediate tyre. And also, we are on...
like a lot of spray from the back of Stringy B's car, eh? So I think it is time for intermediates, but it's not shown in Stringy B's pace. He's got to get the tyres up to temperature. So I mean, hopefully this lap Stringy B can come back and push him and show him that it's time.
Now both of them took a very interesting line around the exit of turn 16 there. I don't know whether it was just a bit of sideways action, but down into turn 1 they will head. We'll see who's got the better braking ability in these conditions. Stringy B trying to let him know.
Still available.
DRS will be available until the clerk of the course deems it unsafe to be active, but I tell you what, Millstar is now overtaking, catching Ant 69, and Millstar still got DRS, I think, or yes, he would have done. And is he going to run a little bit wide? No, he's not. So if Millstar can get that move completed, a nice little overtake there, that one. See, you keep it on the road, you do a nice overtake, you get complimented. You go off track. See, that's a lenient corner where the reference to stewards guys to be allowed to use a bit of curb there. It's more sort of kind of through sectors like this where you don't want to be taking too much curb. And he's got through there quite nicely. So how is Will Butler getting on? Will Butler now onto the intermediate tyre. Now he is a driver that over previous events we have mentioned has needed to work a little bit on his racing lines, keeping the car on the tarmac. And I tell you what, watching him through the S's there, I'd say he's probably watched the footage and listened, because that was beautifully through the S's. Might not have been the fastest way through it, but he kept it on the track up until that point. The commentator's curse strikes again. But that's a situation where in tricky conditions it looked like he was working on it, and now it's just all gone out the window. But that's improvements that perhaps he wouldn't have been showing at a previous event. So it does get noticed when drivers are working on making improvements on their racing lines. John 94 Rhinos, I think, is realising that the tyres he is on, straight on into the wall. He'll be lucky if lucky if that doesn't lose a wheel. And there we go. I was about to say, I think he's realising he's on the wrong tyres. He definitely is. Millstar has now pitted for a set of intermediates, so even though he was able to get ahead of Stringy B, it has got to that point. Also, the option tyres will have been absolutely knackered by that point. Okay, Bart Dude.
He had a bad pit entry.
Oh dear.
Who knows for next time if he watches the video back.
Okay. Oh, Bart Dude, he's had a very bad pit entry as well, crossing the white line, crossing 2 white lines. He had obviously pitted and put a set of prime tyres on, now finds out that's not going to have worked. So Stringy B, who put his intermediate tyres on a couple of laps ago, could potentially come out ahead of Bart Dude, who is just getting to the exit of the pit lane now. I think we're going to see Stringy B coming past. Here we go. So Stringy B takes the lead, moves over so that Bart Dude can tell that he is there. And we've got Temp Fear in 3rd place, just behind Bart Dude here. So now it's Bart Dude's time to work on seeing what these intermediate tyres are capable of, and he's just realised they're not capable of a lot of grip. So we could end up having a battle here for 1st, 2nd and 3rd. But it does look like Bart Dude, I mean, there's one thing taking it to the limit of the track, and then there's another thing going over the limit a lot. So Bart Dude, for Brazil, I want to see you in the FRR-idays with us going, he's worked on that, he's kept it on the track, well done, rather than, ooh, yeah, he's off track a little bit too much, because what will happen is you won't get a reserve drive. Okay, I'm going to let you keep an eye, Ray, on the front 3. Actually, no, I won't, because it looks like Bart Dude is catching him up. But this is a situation where for Stringy B, who, for example, isn't exactly slow, if he's working hard to keep it on the track and he's getting caught really, really quick by a car that he can see is off track a little bit too much, or when he watches the footage back is off track a lot, it gets really, really frustrating for the driver. Now, I would guess, I was about to say, I'd guess DRS is not active anymore, but it still is. So Bart Dude with the DRS move heading into turn 1, but I don't think Stringy B is going to give it up easy. He's not, and Temp Fear will be sat behind both of these thinking, go on guys, spin each other off. It's the easiest way you can overtake. So Bart Dude back into the lead then, but Stringy B, as I said, he's not going to be giving that up too easy, although he may not have much of a choice. But this is where, for someone like Stringy B, if this was a league race and he was now following Bart Dude and could see that he's off track a lot, Stringy B could report that driver for being off track a lot, and that's where for Bart Dude he would need to have his race flow ETO lifts. So there we go. I mentioned it on the FRR-idays video before, but for next season in the Formula Racing World Championship, it already is mandatory now to record your footage and supply it into the race directors. For the World Series next season, it will also be mandatory to record footage and supply it to the race directors. So for any of these guys that are sort of wanting to get onto the reserve driver list or permanent driver list for the World Series next season, they are going to need to be aware that they will need to record all of their footage, qualifying and the race, as Temp Fear and Stringy B go side by side around the Mansell curve. And Temp should get DRS here if it is still active. It is, so he will get ahead. So okay, Ray, anything you've been spotting there?
I've been watching the same as you, just the corner cuts and the extensions on the exits.
Yeah.
It's been too many.
I mean, go on.
We have a question. Ray asked DP who was the worst new driver wanting to join the league for ETLs and why. I don't think that's much of a question.
Well, the thing is, the answer to that one isn't probably really an answer I would want to give, but also it would be a case of I've been involved in new drivers joining front row racing for 3 years, so which period would you be on about? I mean, there have been some bad ones. There's been some really bad ones that have improved dramatically. There's even been some that were really, really bad but ended up getting most improved driver at the end of a season later on, and that kind of thing. I like to see that. The nature of F1 gaming with mates or in random lobbies is you get round in the quickest possible time, which means going off the track a lot. When it comes to league racing, it ain't acceptable, and it can take people a long time to break that habit of just cutting a corner and not caring about it, or having the theory of, well, I'm on the curb, so I'm not off the track. Well, you are off the track because the curb's not on the track, it's next to the track. So yeah, I won't really answer that one, but there has been a few. But like I say, I mean,
my first test, it was at Canada, and I got down past turn 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it turn 5 and 6?
yeah,
I got to like under the board thing, like you've got a Pelly board if you were on stringy B there now, under that board, and I broke too late and took out half the computer guys. And I was like, oh shit, I fucked up.
excuse your language.
Beep.
Yeah.
And like Kirsty was sitting beside me, I goes, I've mucked it up. And then the guy that was doing the test at the time says, it's alright, carry on, and I'll do a second test. So I made sure I braked in time, and I got my second test, and then I finally got in, but I was told to watch my lines because I was so used to what these guys would be so used to, is going into a lobby and trying to rattle past everybody.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things for anyone that doesn't know, the way we used to test drivers was sort of what Ray said there. We used to do a pit stop challenge, which was the test. Basically, it'd be a 5-lap race against the AI cars. You start wherever it tells you to start on the grid, random grid, and you pit at the end of the first lap. You then can continue on for the next 5 laps. And what that used to allow us to do was, it used to let us see how you dealt with the start of the race. It used to let us see how you deal with entering the pits. It used to allow us to see how you get on with no traffic around you once you come out the pits. It then gave us the opportunity to see how you got on as you caught cars up. Now, some drivers would start the race and nail into a load of cars. Some drivers would forget about pitting. Some drivers would pit properly. Some drivers would pit and it'd be absolutely shocking the way they entered the pits. And quite a lot of people did mess it up on their first go. Now, we didn't used to say to people, don't worry, you get 2 goes at it, but we always gave a second chance. We always did. Now, for those that were really, really bad, we'd give them a second chance, and if it was still really, really bad, we'd tell them what they'd done, which was bad, and then say, right, we'll give you a few days, and we'll go at it again. Oh, his ant goes very, very wide through the baseball stadium. We'll give you a few days and give you another go at it. Now, some people complain saying, well, the AI drivers, they're really bad. Well, yeah, they are. But in all honesty, they don't do stuff as stupid as humans do. So if you can't handle racing against the AI cars, you're going to struggle racing against decent human or supposedly decent human racers, because some of the stuff the AI cars do is nowhere near as stupid as some of the stuff that humans can do. And trust me, we've seen a lot of stupid stuff that humans can do. And I'm not necessarily on about this race. I'm just on about over the years, we have seen some really, really weird things done by people. So yeah, but what we decided to do, given that last season we had essentially three leagues running, we decided that for the future of front row racing, so that we can open other avenues of progression, we can grow, we altered it around and brought in the FRR-idays, where is the feeder system. So we get to see all of the new guys against each other effectively. We get to see how they get on around the track. We get to see how they get on with the pit lanes, with overtaking, with the different weather conditions, and we can watch their progression over time. Because I know one thing that has frustrated a lot of people before, like we have practice sessions, and sometimes someone will post a phenomenally fast time, and there'll be some people that sit there and go, wow, he's really fast. But you can't be sure about that until you've actually sat there and watched them on board with their lap. I think all of us would honestly sit there and go, wow, that guy is really fast. Had they sat there, watched the lap, and it was perfectly clean, you go, fair play, he's a fast driver. But if you sat there, watched the lap and realised, oh, bloody hell, he's fast because he's cut 6 corners on an 8-corner track, it gives a sort of different perspective. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened to Stringy B. He's just went to cut corner mode.
Perhaps
He's
it's
doing so well, and now he's just the past few laps he's just went into cut corner mode.
Well, that could be one of those situations I was mentioning earlier about where if he's got someone like Bart Dude who, when Stringy B watches this race back, which he probably will do, and sees how much you've commented about how off track he is, it's probably a frustration situation for Stringy now, where it's like, well, sod it, he's doing it, so I'll do it. Whereas, in actual fact, Stringy B would be much better off going, you know what, I'm going to let them pull away and I'm going to keep it on the road. Because if I keep it on the road, my chance of getting a reserve drive is there. If I don't keep it on the road, my chance of a reserve drive goes out the window. Because, I mean, at the moment, Bart Dude's not going to be put on the reserve driver list. That one's fairly blatantly clear. There's no point putting him on if he's going to end up getting disqualified. Whereas someone like Stringy B, if he was keeping it on the road now, we'd be like, look, he's keeping it on the road, he's doing well, he is sliding it about a bit, so his tyres may be struggling, but that's where you still just slow it down, keep it on the road. And then Stringy B would be up for discussion for being on the reserve driver list. Okay, I'm having a quick look at Millstar now. We saw him earlier on struggling a little bit, and I mean, we do understand that circuits like Mexico here, they are very difficult tracks. It is a very tricky circuit. Some of the corners are very tricky in nature. It's very easy to go off the track, and given the wet conditions, it's going to add to that difficulty. But this is where your real talents can shine through, because if we've got one of these drivers that's kept it on the tarmac all the way through the race, that's where it opens your eyes and goes, he's done well. So anyway, that's it. Final lap is being completed by a few of these drivers. Excuse me. I mean, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, one of the things we used to do with the old way with test people is once they'd done a test, we used to ask them how they'd got on, and some of the funny times was where people said, yeah, I think that went really well there. So, well, what about the 4 cars you crashed out into turn 1, the 3 cars you crashed out into turn 2, the amount of corner cuts that you've done? But that's why the sort of breaking the habit is very, very important if you're going to go on into doing league races. So, Mercedes, McLaren on the podium, probably about the only time Alonso's going to be up there. Yeah. I mean, McLaren are actually on about, they reckon they can fight for podiums next season. That's going to take one hell of a miracle for them to achieve that. Now, dare we have a look at the race director. A few collisions which we kind of spotted, and then look at it, corner cutting. See, now this is where for these guys that really need to work on this. I mean, one of the things we've had in the past as well is in like drivers saying, well, the game's not giving me a penalty for it. Yeah, well, you can cut loads of part of Maggots and Beckett's at Silverstone. It doesn't mean that you're not off the track. So yeah, I mean, at front row racing, additional penalties are imposed, which some people see as harsh, but then it'd be no different to playing on project cars and cutting corners and getting a 5-second time penalty, a slowdown penalty. So yeah, people may think it's harsh, but at the end of the day, keep it on the road, simple as that. Anyway, a very tricky session for the drivers there, a very, very tricky session. So anything you want to any comments you want to end on there, Ray?
Obviously what we spoke about on what is it, the video, sorry, and hopefully they watch it and practice a wee bit more to try and keep the car within the lines, and then they'll be able to get a reserve, because I never even watched what's his name, Tep Fear much, but for what I watched, I don't know if I could put MD on.
Yeah.
the reserve list, in my opinion. But
I mean, it's a very
case to be argued.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very difficult session for the drivers, but at the same time, we have seen a lot of off tracks. But that's what the point of the FRR-idays is. We know we're going to see a lot of people off track, but that's why we talk about it. So when the drivers then watch the video back and they hear us going, "Oh, he's off track there, he's off track here, he's off track there," they then are aware. Right, I can't do that. I've got to change that. So I would advise all of the FRR-idays drivers, when the Brazil Stewards Guide gets put out, watch it, analyse it, right? Practice Brazil, practice Abu Dhabi, practice keeping it within those white lines. If it means you're a second off what pace you could do, then that's your genuine pace. Excuse me. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you got myself and Kev 187 who are fairly quick, but if we went cutting corners around tracks, we could easily be 2-3 seconds faster. That's not the point of it. Be fast, be clean. No one can then ever say you're not doing it fairly. Okay, anyway, we'll bring that to an end there. Very interesting session, a very tricky session for a lot of the drivers. So next up on the Front Row Racing YouTube channel, in about 35 minutes time, will be the PCF Friday. Well, it's not PCF Friday, it's the PCF League Project Cars Fridays. The Formula B, or Formula No Wheels as Ray likes to call them.
I've changed it. No wheels. A wee bit of Scottish in there.
Formula No Wheels. Okay, and it's going to be 24 laps around Silverstone. So that could be an interesting one. And if anyone ends up in the wall without a wheel around that track, I will be surprised, because the walls are quite far away from the track apart from the start finish. So yeah, we'll be live again in about 35 minutes for our Project Cars Friday League. So that'll be at about 9 p.m. and then we will be live again on Sunday at 8:30 for the PCS, the Project Cars Sundays, which will be in the Ginetta Juniors, where my commentary partner here, Ray, is trying to hunt down Dave the Harp for the title in that one. So that'll be the Ginetta Juniors for 17 laps at Imola. Be an interesting race, that one. Okay, folks, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much, guys, for taking part. Ray, thank you very much for joining on the commentary. We've been Front Row Racing. This has been you're very welcome. We've been Front Row Racing. This has been FRR-idays Cup, and we shall see you all again soon.